Welcome to Eastern Circle Discussion Series. Our first interview is going to be with Florent Parmentier, French expert on Moldova, author on multiple books on the country, and the Secretary General of CEVIPOF, also director of EurAsia Prospective blog. Hello, Florent, and welcome.
Hello, Anastasia.
Maia Sandu, former Prime Minister of Moldova and the pro-European presidential candidate, won the presidential elections in Moldova today, running on anti-corruption pro-European platform. She won with over 57% of the vote against 42% for the pro-Russian incumbent president, Igor Dodon. Who are the voters who have voted for Maia Sandu, and what can we expect as a result of her elections?
Well, first of all, we should emphasize the fact that Maia Sandu was the leader of the first round, which was not necessarily expected. But she won a convincing second round, which made her the first woman president in the post-Soviet space outside the Baltic states, except for Mrs. Tikhanovskaya, as soon as we accept that she's the president of Belarus. But apart from that, I would say that the difference with Belarus is that the transition of power was quite soft, in a sense that the incumbent president, Mr. Dodon, has already acknowledged the fact that actually he has lost the election. So the first thing is that he has done so because the margin of the victory of Maia Sandu is quite strong. She scored impressive results among the youth and among the diaspora. She won probably, I mean, the center of Moldova, the region of Western Moldova, but she was beaten both in the north and in the south. The fact is that it is quite classical if we compare with previous results with, I would say, left versus right opposition in the second round. So in this perspective, she won a lot of votes compared with last time in 2016 abroad. The level of the involvement of the diaspora is much stronger than what it was a few years ago. So she was able, I mean, to score more for men than for women. She was able to score strong results. For instance, it is expected that in the 18 to 25 years old community, she secured some 3/4 of the voters. So the younger you are, the most you have voted for Maia Sandu. That's what we can say.
Mm-hmm. And as for the urban versus rural population?
She secured some strong score in the capital, in Chisinau. Then it's also regional, in the sense that in the south of Moldova you're more leaning toward left parties rather than in central Moldova. So you have different kind of cleavages. I would say that comparatively, the Socialist Party of Moldova is still strong in the rural areas, where the influence of the Orthodox Church is stronger, maybe, and that's one of the explanations that you can find. With a Socialist Party which is more closely linked to the Orthodox Church, which is linked to the Moscow Patriarchate than maybe some other voters in the cities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What are the reforms that Ms. Sandu is going to put forward?
Well, as soon as she on the day one of her presidency, what we could expect is a strong emphasis on the question of the rule of law, which is probably what is missing to most of the citizens. What is expected is we have to remind, I mean, these particular episodes in the Moldovan history in 2014, when 1 billion was stolen, which was a tantamount to some 13% of the GDP. So a lot of the public opinion is still very upset with this particular development. But it is not the only affairs, not the only case of corruption that are important for the country. So her priority should be both. She should put an emphasis on the way she will develop economically the country, especially and see how Moldova can recover after COVID-19. And the other, and I think it's quite equivalent in terms of priorities. I think then the other priority is about fighting corruption.
And her elections campaign was based on the European future promise. What does that promise really mean, especially for hundreds of thousands of Moldovans who left the country for the European Union and who have even managed to take their families with them? It's difficult to imagine them now, after these years of sacrifices, coming back. But also, what can the European Union do in order to help realize that European promise?
I think during Maia Sandu's campaign, she was really eager to show that she knows what it takes to be more consistent in Brussels for Moldova. It shows that you should pay more attention to different kind of priorities, and in particular to the issue of linked with corruption and with good governance. That's the first point. So she has to put the emphasis and be focused on this. Then it is also true that she's she has, I mean, some of her supporters. I think of Mr. Renato Usati, the guy who arrived at the third place during the first round, who is supposed to be no less pro-Russian than Mr. Dodon. Actually, he was very influential, and he was one of the key players who can explain, I mean, the victory of Maia Sandu. So we will see here to what extent actually she will be able as a president, I mean, to launch new parliamentary elections, and if she can do it, to see, I mean, to what extent she will be able to secure her victory with a victory in the parliamentary elections. That's another thing. What is for sure is that many experts expected that the victory of one or the other candidate would be by a narrower margin than what we have seen. And many people expected that there might be some third round in the streets with a lot of protesters. Mr. Dodon acknowledged his defeat and recognized his defeat, so there won't be probably any kind of protestation in the street related to the presidential election. However, what we may see is some kind of third round in the parliament, and we will see to what extent the different groups in the parliament will try, I mean, to converge or to provoke the new elections. And that would be, I mean, very important in terms of the effectiveness of reform that Maia Sandu wants to implement.
Of course, that's going to be her major challenge, basically, from what you're saying, is that having that support in order to put forward the laws. But what are the laws that she's aiming at? What are the reforms? Economic reforms, in terms of tackling corruption, how does she plan to tackle it? Would she go down the Georgian path, basically revamping the entire structures and starting from scratch, recruitment from zero? Or would she go gradual reform, in which case, what does it mean in the post-Soviet space? And what has she concretely proposed? How will it make Moldova a European country?
As regards the model of reform, the Georgian experiment was successful in some specific areas, for instance, the police reform, and was much less successful in other fields. But also the thing is, the nature of governance of Mr. Saakashvili is fundamentally different to what you have in Moldova. Mr. Saakashvili arrived in 2003 thanks to contestation in the street and he was also contested a lot. What you have in Moldova is more kind of consensual politics, which make a difference and which probably won't let Maia Sandu to be too radical on this. What she has to do actually is she knows that she had some reforms in terms of prosecuting, in terms of straightening the bodies fighting corruption. So I think it would be more gradual. It would be also probably more. I mean, she would have to pick the good guys or the good person, qualified people, which would help. I mean, to implement reforms and transform the country.
How can the European Union help, and how may it help? What is within its reach?
Here again, we have to consider all of the 6 countries of the Eastern Partnership. What you may see is 2 of them have just signed an armistice, a ceasefire, which is Armenia and Azerbaijan. Another one is experimenting some 100 days of protest, which is Belarus. And as regards Georgia and Ukraine, the strength of their conflict is more important. Among the 6, Moldova is probably one of the only ones who has several consecutive alternative transition of power. So in terms of I think what they need is good institutions or improving institutions. That's the first thing. The other thing is to say that if you look at foreign trade, the thing is Moldova has already done the job in terms of reorientation towards the European markets. It is something which has been made, and in a way, I think both candidates knew it very well. So here I think that what Europe should do is probably to give some credit and to see how you can technically help reforming Moldova, given the fact that it's probably a country in which, because of the level of wealth which is low, and because of the fact that it's still a country which is of 3.5 million inhabitants, it has a limited size. So it is probably the one where you can invest with some chance to see some concrete improvement. And here again, I think over the last few years, Moldova has sometimes been the poster child of the Eastern Partnership. At some other points, it was considered as a turbulent child, which was not very dedicated to rule of law and integrity. So now what we may see probably is, and what we should expect is probably to have some more concrete relations, provided that at least the president worked with the parliament, or that she launched a dissolution.
How will these elections impact Moldova's relations with Russia?
I think on both sides, they are trying to that they will try to find some common grounds on pragmatic terms. During her campaign, Maia Sandu was eager not to alienate all the Russian-leaning voters. So she decided that she took a stance which is, we are pro-European, but we shouldn't necessarily alienate for that reason Russia. So, for instance, during her first speech after the results of the election, she has made 19% in Romanian and some 10% in Russian. I mean, to express her point of view and share her feeling about the results. So I think she won't expect that Russia will try to solve the Transnistrian issue right now. She's not expected for that. She knows that After all, I mean, the level of dependency towards Russia in terms of foreign trade is much lower than any other Eastern Partnership country. So she will try to see how they can get along. Mr. Dodon was supported to a certain extent. I mean, he was supported by Russia, but not at, I mean, as much as Russia could have done for him. I mean, in terms of loans, in terms of different aspects. So Russia was more favorable to Mr. Dodon, but I don't think that they would see as an upset the fact that that Maia Sandu is coming to power, and probably they will try to find some agreements.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.